Listen, while every other man is scrolling through his phone at 6 a.m., checking notifications before his feet even hit the floor, there is a silent epidemic destroying male excellence. And no, it is not what the self-help gurus are selling you. It is something far more insidious. It is the complete eradication of boredom from your life. In 2024, researchers at the University of Notre Dame published something that should terrify every man who wants to dominate his field. They studied over 1,500 professionals and discovered that when you try to push through boring tasks, when you suppress that feeling of boredom, you are not being disciplined. You are destroying your productivity for the rest of the day. Like a game of whack-a-mole, that boredom you tried to bury pops up later, wrecking your focus on the tasks that actually matter. The men who fought their boredom ended up mind-wandering more and accomplishing less. Therefore, every time you reach for your phone to avoid 15 seconds of boredom, you are training your brain to be weak. But here is where it gets interesting. And this is where the science separates winners from losers. Neuroscientists at Baylor College of Medicine and the University of Utah just proved that your brain has a network called the default mode network. This network only activates when you are bored, when you are doing nothing, when you are staring at a wall, or sitting in traffic without a podcast blasting in your ears. And this network, this thing that only turns on during boredom, is directly responsible for creative thinking and original ideas. When they artificially shut down this network in test subjects, creativity plummeted, the ability to generate novel solutions disappeared. Therefore, when you are constantly stimulated, constantly entertained, constantly scrolling, you are literally shutting off the part of your brain that makes you exceptional. Think about the last time you had a genuinely brilliant idea. I will bet it was not while you were checking Instagram. It was probably in the shower, or during a long drive, or maybe while you were working out without your AirPods in. That was not a coincidence. That was your default mode network, finally getting a chance to do what it does best, but most men never give it that chance anymore. The average human attention span dropped from 12 seconds in 2000 to 8 seconds today. That is shorter than a goldfish. A goldfish, and you wonder why you cannot focus on anything important for more than a few minutes. You wonder why that business idea never gets executed, why that novel never gets written, why that difficult conversation never happens. Your brain has been trained to seek constant dopamine hits. Every notification, every like, every scroll triggers a surge of dopamine. And like any addict, you need more and more stimulation to feel normal. The problem is, your brain compensates by lowering its baseline dopamine levels. Therefore, the more you use your phone, the more you need your phone. You are literally creating a neurochemical dependency that makes boredom feel like torture. Here is what the research from Florida International University found. People who are bored at work for more than 10 hours per week perform better than people who are never bored. Because boredom signals your brain that something needs to change. It is your internal alert system saying, "This is not meaningful enough, find something better." But when you immediately suppress that signal with digital distraction, you never get the message. You never make the change. You stay stuck in patterns that do not serve you. You stay stuck in mediocrity. And mediocrity, gentlemen, is the enemy of elegance. Now I know what you're thinking. Daniel, successful men are busy. They do not have time to be bored. Wrong. Completely wrong. The most successful men in the world deliberately schedule boredom into their lives. They understand that the brain needs downtime to process information, to consolidate memories, to generate insights. Bill Gates famously takes Think Weeks, where he isolates himself with nothing but books and his thoughts. No phone, no internet, just boredom and books. Warren Buffett spends most of his day reading and thinking, not frantically checking emails, not in back-to-back meetings, reading and thinking. Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, wakes up at 4:30 a.m. every single day. And what does he do? He reads the paper. He listens to music. He watches the news. He does not immediately jump into work mode. He gives his brain time to be understimulated. The difference between high-performance men and everyone else is not that high-performance men are busier. It is that they protect their boredom like it is sacred. They understand that insights do not come from constant stimulation. They come from the spaces between stimulation, from the quiet moments when your default mode network can actually function. But most men have eliminated those moments entirely. They check their phone 96 times per day on average. They cannot even sit through a red light without reaching for digital stimulation. They have become so addicted to constant input that silence feels like punishment. A study published in 2019 in Brain found that the default mode network is not just about creativity, it is about meaning. When you are bored, your mind naturally drifts to big questions. What does my life mean? Am I on the right path? What actually matters to me? These are uncomfortable questions. Therefore, we avoid them by scrolling. We avoid them by staying busy. We avoid them by never allowing ourselves to be bored. But those uncomfortable questions are exactly what you need to ask if you want a life worth living. Researchers at Harvard did an experiment where they put people in a room with nothing to do except push a button that gave them a painful electric shock. Most people chose the shock over sitting with their thoughts. They literally preferred physical pain to boredom. That is how disconnected we have become from our own minds. Here is what I want you to understand. Every time you pull out your phone when you are slightly bored, you are not being efficient. You are being weak. You are choosing immediate comfort over long-term excellence. You are trading your ability to think deeply for the illusion of productivity. And that trade will cost you everything that matters. Your phone is not making you better. It is making you more dependent. It is fragmenting your attention. It is destroying your ability to focus on anything difficult for extended periods. It is turning you into a reactive man instead of a proactive man. And reactive men do not build empires. They do not create legacies. They do not become the men other men want to be. So what is the solution? How do you reclaim your ability to be bored in a world designed to eliminate boredom? Start small. Tomorrow morning, do not touch your phone for the first hour after you wake up. Not for emails, not for news, not for anything. Let yourself be bored during breakfast. Let yourself be understimulated. Notice how uncomfortable it feels. That discomfort is your brain detoxing from constant stimulation. When you go to the gym, leave your phone in the locker. Work out in silence. Let your mind wander. I promise you, some of your best ideas will come while you are lifting weights without a podcast in your ears. On your commute, turn off the radio. Turn off the audiobook. Sit with nothing but your thoughts. Watch what happens. This will feel impossible at first, like children screaming in your head. That is addiction talking. That is your brain demanding its dopamine fix. But push through. After a few days, the screaming quiets down. After a week, you start noticing things you have been missing. After a month, you realize how much mental energy you have been wasting on digital junk. You start having ideas again. Real ideas. Original ideas. The kind of ideas that separate excellent men from average men. Because excellent men are not just smarter or more talented. They are willing to sit with discomfort. They are willing to be bored. They understand that boredom is not emptiness. It is space. Space for your mind to wander. Space for creativity to emerge. Space for meaning to develop. The research from the Journal of Applied Psychology found that if you alternate boring tasks with meaningful tasks, you maintain productivity throughout the day. But if you try to suppress boredom and power through, that suppressed boredom haunts you for hours, destroying your focus on everything that comes after. Therefore, the solution is not to eliminate boredom. The solution is to embrace it strategically. Use boring tasks as opportunities for your default mode network to activate. Use that drive to work as thinking time. Use that wait in line as meditation time. Stop treating every moment of understimulation as a problem to be solved with your phone. Let me be clear about something. I am not telling you to become some monk who meditates 8 hours a day. I'm telling you to reclaim the ordinary moments of boredom that used to be part of normal life, before smartphones, before constant connectivity, before we convinced ourselves that every second needed to be productive or entertaining. Those boring moments were not wasted time. They were when your brain did its most important work, processing, consolidating, creating, meaning-making. And by eliminating those moments, we have eliminated our ability to think at the highest level. A study in Nature Communications found that heavy smartphone users show significantly lower performance on tasks requiring extended focus, memory, and problem-solving. Their brains have adapted to short bursts of information. They have lost the ability to engage in sustained mental effort, and sustained mental effort is what separates men who accomplish extraordinary things from men who just scroll through life watching other people accomplish extraordinary things. You cannot build a business while checking Instagram every 5 minutes. You cannot write a book while your attention span is shorter than a goldfish. You cannot have a meaningful relationship when your mind is always half somewhere else. Excellence requires depth. Depth requires focus. Focus requires the ability to sit with boredom without immediately medicating it with digital stimulation. Here is what happens when you get good at boredom. First, you become less bored with everything else in your life. Your job becomes more interesting. Your relationships become more engaging. Your daily routine becomes more meaningful because you have trained your brain to find depth in ordinary things instead of constantly seeking novelty. Second, you start making better decisions because you have given yourself space to think instead of just react. Third, you become more creative, more insightful, more original, because your default mode network finally has the space it needs to do what it does best: generate ideas that no one else is having, make connections that no one else is making, see opportunities that no one else is seeing. But more importantly, you start living your life instead of performing your life. Most men have become so addicted to external validation that they have forgotten what they actually want. They do what successful people do instead of what they need. They optimize their morning routine like it is a performance instead of a foundation. They check metrics before they check in with themselves. They are so busy looking productive that they forget to be purposeful. Boredom cuts through all of that nonsense. When you are bored, you cannot perform. You cannot optimize. You can only be. And in that being, you discover who you actually are beneath all the productivity theater. Look, I understand the resistance. You have been told your whole life that boredom is bad, that you should always be learning, always be improving, always be doing. But that mentality is exactly what is keeping you average, because real improvement, the kind that actually matters, does not happen when you are constantly consuming content. It happens when you give your brain space to integrate what you have already learned, to process, to reflect, to let insights emerge naturally instead of forcing them. And that process requires boredom. It requires silence. It requires the very thing you have been trained to avoid. If you want to subscribe to this channel and transform your elegance into power and success, hit that subscribe button now. Leave a like if you are ready to reclaim your ability to think deeply in a world designed for shallow thinking, because that ability is what separates men who lead from men who follow, men who create from men who consume, men who build legacies from men who just exist. The scientific research is clear. Boredom is not optional if you want to operate at the highest level. It is essential. Neuroscientists at Baylor College of Medicine proved that the default mode network is causally linked to creative thinking. Researchers at Notre Dame showed that suppressing boredom destroys productivity. Studies on smartphone addiction reveal that constant stimulation literally rewires your brain to be less capable. The evidence is overwhelming. Yet most men are doing the exact opposite of what the science recommends. They are eliminating boredom from their lives completely. and they wonder why they feel empty, why they lack direction, why they cannot focus on anything meaningful for more than a few minutes. I am asking you to do something radical. Embrace boredom, schedule it, protect it, use it as a competitive advantage. Because while every other man is drowning in digital distraction, you will be the one actually thinking. While everyone else is consuming content, you will be creating insights. While everyone else is performing productivity, you will be building something real. This is not about being anti-technology. I use technology, but I use it as a tool, not as a replacement for thinking. I do not sleep with my phone. I do not check it during meals. I do not reach for it every time I feel slightly understimulated, because I understand that my ability to think deeply is my most valuable asset, and I am not going to trade that asset for the temporary comfort of constant stimulation. Starting today, I want you to implement 3 protocols. First, no devices for the first hour after you wake up. Let your brain come online naturally without immediately flooding it with information. Second, no phone during any meal. Sit with your food. Sit with your thoughts. Let yourself be bored for 20 minutes. Third, schedule regular periods of complete device detox. Start with 1 day per month, then 1 day per week. Watch how your brain changes when you give it consistent periods of understimulation. Watch how your ideas improve, how your focus sharpens, how your sense of meaning deepens. The hardest part will be the first few days. Your brain will scream for stimulation. It will tell you that you are missing something important, that you need to check your messages, that boredom is wasted time. Ignore all of that. That is addiction talking. Push through. Let the discomfort teach you something about yourself. Let the boredom reveal what your constant stimulation has been hiding, because I guarantee there are questions you have been avoiding, dreams you have been suppressing, changes you need to make. And those things will only emerge when you stop drowning them out with digital noise. In 6 months, you will look back and wonder how you ever functioned with constant stimulation. You will have more clarity, more creativity, more focus, more meaning. You will be the man who can sit through a boring meeting and actually have thoughts worth sharing. The man who can drive without a podcast and arrive with a solution to a problem that has been bothering you for months. The man who can work out without music and have an insight that changes everything. That man exists inside you right now, but he cannot emerge while you are constantly medicating yourself with digital stimulation. What we have learned today is this: boredom activates the default mode network, which is essential for creativity and meaning. Suppressing boredom destroys productivity later. Smartphone addiction literally rewires your brain to be less capable. High-performance men deliberately schedule boredom into their lives. The ability to sit with discomfort is what separates excellent men from average men, and you cannot build excellence on a foundation of constant distraction. Therefore, if you want to be a high-performance man, you need to reclaim your ability to be bored, to sit with silence, to let your mind wander without immediately pulling out your phone. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the Man of Elegance channel in creating more content about male excellence, consider becoming a member of our club. Memberships start at just $4.99 per month. Click the membership button to join a community of men who are serious about elevating every aspect of their lives. Your support allows me to continue researching, writing, and producing content that actually makes a difference in how men show up in the world. If you want to be an elegant and powerful man who dominates his field, subscribe to this channel and leave a like on this video. Comment below with these words: "Boredom builds excellence." If you enjoyed this message, I want to know. That simple comment tells me you are serious about transformation, not just consuming content about success, actually becoming successful. And remember, fashion is not luxury, it is power. But power without the ability to think deeply is just performance. Real power comes from within, and within only reveals itself when you stop running from boredom and start using it as the tool it is meant to be. Now get out there, Put down your phone and discover what your mind is actually capable of when you give it the space it deserves.